This guardian angel of election integrity, expired Kraft single, is Alabama Secretary of State Wes Allen, who recently announced that Joe Biden might not be on the general ballot in November because the Democratic National Convention is past the deadline for Alabama to certify candidates. And that's just a fuck up on the Democratic Party, ain't it? I mean, they should have known. I bet nothing like this has ever happened before. Well, except in 2020 when both parties' conventions were past the deadline. But the state government passed a one-time exemption moving the deadline. But the Republican National Convention was still past the deadline. So Secretary of the State at the time, John Merrill, accepted a one-time provisional certification so Trump could be on the ballot. But Wes Allen says this time he won't do that. He just, nothing he can do, his hands are tied. So when Wes Allen was a state representative, he had no problem with the Republican Party using the provisional certifications just to make sure that Trump was on the ballot. But now that he is Secretary of State, he just ain't too fond of it since it's the left that's needing help. But remember, Alabama's all about free and fair election integrity. The state has closed multiple DMV offices in rural, low-income areas while the GOP rails about voter ID laws. Meanwhile, the chairman of the state GOP has voted in multiple elections using a homemade ID. And when the poll worker questioned him about it, the poll worker is also a conservative, he had the poll worker removed. The state GOP is wanting closed primaries because for some reason, citizens that they do not agree with using their constitutional right to vote on candidates is a problem that needs fixing. First thing Wes Allen did as Secretary of State was withdraw Alabama from ERIC, which red and blue states use to make sure that voter rolls are clean, because according to Wes Allen, ERIC was a George Soros funded liberal plot to undermine election integrity, whatever the fuck that means. He then started one that only Bama will use that does the same exact thing as ERIC, except it's not as thorough and it costs the taxpayers of the state more. Plus, the state just made it a felony if you help somebody with an absentee ballot. And now Biden might not even be on the ballot in November because of a deadline that was easily fixable when the GOP needed it fixed. Alabama is a Republican supermajority state that Trump won in 2020 with over 60% of the vote. Yet that supermajority keeps finding ways to make it harder and harder for citizens to have their voice heard. But you know, well, whatever. I mean, election integrity. Hallelujah. And roll tide.